All right, let's get right into it. Today, Jim Kwik is a world-renowned brain coach. We're talking the go-to guy for elite athletes, Hollywood actors, top executives, the whole shebang. But his journey to mastering the human mind, it definitely didn't start in a state of genius. Actually, it began in a place of profound struggle, trauma, and honestly, a deeply painful limitation. We're going to unpack exactly how a struggling student transformed into one of the world's leading experts on accelerated learning, and more importantly, how his origin story can help us unlock our own limitless potential. Let's dive right into this explainer. Picture this. You're a kid in elementary school. You're already struggling to keep up with your classmates, already feeling like you just don't belong. You're trying your absolute hardest, but the lessons just aren't clicking. And then, out of nowhere, a frustrated teacher points directly at you in front of everyone and says, "That's the boy with the broken brain." Ouch, right? This completely devastating moment permanently altered Jim Kwik's childhood self-worth. That single sentence crashed into his reality and just totally shattered his confidence. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the broken brain. So, long before those struggles in elementary school, there was a specific, highly traumatic event that changed everything. It happened when Jim was just 5 years old, sitting in kindergarten. Sirens started blaring outside, and like any fascinated kid, he stood on his chair to get a look at the fire engines out the window. In a tragic twist of fate, another kid pulled the chair out from right underneath him. Jim went flying headfirst into a metal radiator, and he lost a significant amount of blood. The contrast is heartbreaking. Before that fall, he was this energized, confident, and intensely curious kid. But after that tragic head injury, everything shifted. He became noticeably shut down, his focus literally vanished, and his memories suffered terribly. And this tragic downward spiral, it just kept compounding. Because of his brain injury, school became an absolute ordeal. I mean, it took Jim an extra 3 years just to learn how to read. He lived in constant fear of reading circles, absolutely terrified of looking down at a page and not understanding a single word. As he entered his teen years, the pain only deepened. He had to watch his beloved grandmother, the woman who helped raise him, suffer from advanced dementia. Losing her mind and memory right in front of him took an incredibly intense emotional toll. By the time he actually made it to college, he was working so incredibly hard just to keep his head above water that he was literally passing out in the library from sheer exhaustion. The core issue here really goes back to that teacher's cruel comment, because a label isn't just a word, right? It's a massive psychological danger. When an external word is imposed by an authority figure, it very quickly becomes a child's internal belief and ultimately their hard limitation. Jim fully internalized the belief that his mind just didn't work like everyone else's. Whenever he bombed a quiz or wasn't picked for a team, he'd tell himself, "Well, it's because my brain is broken." It's a really stark reminder of how easily external criticisms can hardwire our internal limitations, causing us to ultimately fight to protect those exact limits. Moving on to Section 2, escaping into comic books. Every hero's journey features unexpected allies and mentors. Well, for Jim, these mentors definitely didn't come in the form of traditional teachers or tutors. Because regular books couldn't hold his attention for a second, Jim found this unexpected sanctuary in comic books. Late at night, hiding under his covers with a flashlight, he actually taught himself how to read by just devouring them. And he related to the X-Men deeply, not because they were the strongest, but because they were misunderstood, weirdly different outcasts, treated poorly by a society that just didn't get them. Jim felt like a mutant himself, just without the cool superpowers. These stories gave him the hope that one person really could overcome impossible odds. Which brings us to Section 3, hitting rock bottom. Despite that glimmer of hope from the comics, real life was still incredibly unforgiving. Fast forward to college, where a well-meaning mentor challenged him to read a book a week, piling even more onto an already heavy workload. Jim's determination pushed him to a dangerous extreme. He stopped eating, sleeping, exercising, socializing. He essentially lived in the campus library. So the crucial point is, this severe deprivation led to a literal fall down a flight of stairs, causing yet another head injury. He woke up in a hospital bed 2 entire days later, severely dehydrated, hooked up to all these IV bags, and weighing a mere 117 pounds. He had hit absolute rock bottom. For a moment, he actually thought he had died. Let's look at Section 4, the Einstein epiphany. You know, it's often at our absolute lowest points that the greatest breakthroughs occur. Lying in that hospital bed, totally miserable and wasting away, Jim told himself there just had to be a better way. And then, this moment of absolute cinematic serendipity happens. A nurse walks into his room carrying a mug of tea. Printed right on the side of the mug was a picture of Albert Einstein, alongside this exact quote: No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. That quote sparked a profound realization for Jim. He realized he'd been trying to solve his learning problems by simply working harder, using the exact same broken methods that were failing him in the first place. He was operating at the exact same level of consciousness that created his extreme exhaustion. This led to the ultimate light bulb moment. Jim started to wonder, wait, what if my problem isn't my capacity, but my method? What if I could learn how to learn? He asked the nurse for a university course bulletin and frantically flipped through hundreds of pages. He found classes on math, history, Spanish, all these courses that taught what to learn. But ironically, there wasn't a single class teaching students how to learn. It's kind of the elusive obvious of our entire education system, right? We are never actually taught the fundamental skill of learning itself. And that leads us to our final section, the ultimate superpower. Returning from the abyss, Jim made this fierce commitment to solve his riddle. How does my brain work so I can work my brain? He pushed aside his regular university studies and totally immersed himself in everything he could find on the topic. And this brilliantly illustrates his massive shift in mindset. He dove deep into adult learning theory, multiple intelligence theory, neuroscience, educational psychology, and speed reading. He even studied ancient mnemonics to figure out how older cultures passed down knowledge way before printing presses existed. He was literally rebuilding his mind from the ground up. Within just a couple of months of this intense, self-directed meta-learning, it was as if a light switch flipped on. First step, his concentration became absolutely ironclad. He wasn't easily distracted anymore. Step 2, he developed accelerated recall, easily remembering complex information he'd studied weeks prior. And step 3, with these newfound abilities came boundless energy and a totally reignited curiosity. The boy with the broken brain was finally healing himself. Jim eventually began teaching these exact methods to other students. He started tutoring a college freshman who desperately wanted to read faster and retain more information. By using Jim's methods, she successfully read 30 books in 30 days. Let that sink in, 30 books in 30 days. But the why is the most emotional part of this whole story. Her mother had recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and this student used her new skills to devour books on health, wellness, and medicine to try and save her. Months later, she called Jim crying tears of pure joy because her mother's cancer had actually gone into remission. This proved to Jim beyond a shadow of a doubt that if knowledge is power, learning is our ultimate superpower. And it's a superpower that belongs to absolutely everyone. Jim Kwik's incredible story shows us that the labels we're given, or even the ones we give ourselves, they just aren't permanent. Your brain is not broken. It just needs the right owner's manual. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to really reflect on. What limitations are you currently accepting as absolute truth? What broken brain labels are holding you back right now? It's time to reject those limitations, learn how to learn, and unlock your own limitless potential. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.